I want to start by telling a story. So the other day, I was doing my grocery shopping at Safeway, and at one point I was approaching the end of the aisle, and I knew I was going the correct way because I had to go out of my way to follow the arrows on the floor. And just as I got to the end of the aisle, this lady entered the aisle from that end, obviously ignoring the arrows, and started pushing her grocery cart straight toward me head on. And she had her little kid with her, and so she was distracted and she didn't even acknowledge my presence. And yet she was in my way, and it was impossible for me to get by her without coming within 6 feet of her. That's when I decided no more. I'm not going to give in and accommodate another person's ignorance just for the sake of keeping the peace. So instead, I blocked her cart with mine. She said, "Excuse me," and then tried to go around me. But then I moved my cart to keep blocking her. And I said to her, "You're going the wrong way." And she rolled her eyes and said, "Please, just let me through. I just need the syrup right there." And I gave her a cold stare and I said, "No, you're the one going the wrong way. You get out of my way." And so she realized I wasn't going to budge, and I guess she didn't want to get into a battle in front of her 6-year-old boy. So she let out a really audible groan of annoyance and said, "The virus isn't nearly as bad as people say it is. People like you are the reason the economy is being ruined." And I gave her another cold look and said, "I don't care what you believe." And I continued my shopping. Or at least that's how it all happened in my head. In real life, I said nothing at all to her, and I just squeezed right past her, briefly coming within 6 feet of her, and not once did she ever acknowledge my presence there. It's like she didn't even notice that I was there. Yeah. And see, a lot of times that's how I am in my head. I'm acting like a type 8 in my head, asserting my will onto other people, taking control of the situation, not being controlled by other people. And yet, in reality, I almost always act like the type 9 that I am, not doing the thing that goes through my head and instinctively avoiding the conflict just to keep the peace. Now, some might say that what I actually did, not starting a conflict, just letting it go, a lot of people would say that that was the right thing to do, and that there was no need to get into a conflict with this lady who probably just didn't even realize that there were arrows on the floor and, she was distracted by her kid. Some people would say the one-way aisles are stupid, or just the fact that extending grace to this lady was the kind thing to do. Well, okay, but those weren't my reasons for avoiding the conflict. Basically, I'll admit that I probably did the right thing for the wrong reasons. Consciously choosing to be kind to someone is not the same thing as instinctively avoiding a conflict. Just the fact that that type 8 fantasy went through my head kind of shows that kindness was not part of my mindset at that moment. So, clearly I did not have the most altruistic motives on that day. But in any case, I would say that thinking like a type 8 while acting like a type 9, that's kind of like what it means to me to be a type 9 with an 8 wing. On Enneagram tests, I almost always score like near 0 on type 8. And yet when I read descriptions of type 8, especially the core motivation of type 8, not wanting to be harmed or controlled by other people, in my mind I'm thinking, yeah, that's kind of me. Except in real life, I let myself be controlled by other people because apparently my type 9 instinct is a lot stronger and overrules any type 8 like attitude that I might have in my head. And I definitely relate to that way more than anything related to type 1. Type 1 being right, following the rules. The only reason I was enforcing the rules in my head was because I decided that this is the rule I'm going to follow, and I don't want to let this person thwart my efforts to do this thing that I decided I want to do. And you may have heard some ISTPs of other Enneagram types or type 9s of other MBTI types say that, they're stubborn when it comes to following the rules or being told what to do. That whole thing of like, I was going to do this thing until you told me to do it, and now I don't want to do it anymore. I mean, I can kind of understand that attitude, but I don't relate to it as much. If I've decided that something makes sense for me to do, I'm still going to try to do it regardless of whether somebody just comes along and tells me that that's what I should do. And, if I already decided that that's a good thing to do, then I'll just agree with them. That's how I feel about the one-way aisles. Like, I understand the reasoning for that, and it sounds like a good idea to me. So I'm like, okay, fine. If that's the rule, then yeah, I'll go ahead and follow it because it makes sense to me. But like, I'm noticing more and more that people are ignoring the arrows on the floor and just choosing to go the wrong way down the aisle, whether they mean to or not. And so like, I realized that if everybody's ignoring those signs and going the wrong way down the aisles, well, then it's pointless for me to follow the same rule, and then I'll just be inconveniencing myself, and nothing I do at that point is going to help with social distancing at all. So once I realize that, I'll just say, okay, I'll just ignore the rules just like everybody else. Same thing with speeding. I understand that speed limits are posted to keep everyone safe, but if everyone is driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, I might as well do it too, because slowing down is just going to make things even more dangerous. That's just going to cause other drivers to have to take evasive actions to avoid slamming into me. Well, I guess actually speeding is kind of a bad example because I speed anyway, whether other people are there or not. But anyway, you get the idea. But yeah, I've mentioned in past videos that I don't mind following the health and safety guidelines for the coronavirus. Staying 6 feet away from other people, wearing a mask, avoiding large gatherings, staying at home. Because those, first of all, those are easy for me to do. Those are things I prefer to do anyway. I like keeping physical distance from people. I like working from home. I like online interactions. And again, I understand the reasons for doing these things to avoid spreading this virus that otherwise we can't control. The people that are arguing about the government taking away their personal freedoms and saying the coronavirus is a conspiracy, it's just because they hate the situation that they're in. They hate the fact that stuff is shut down. I don't like that fact either, but my life hasn't been impacted that much, and I understand that, I understand, people are suffering because their businesses got shut down, or they're just going crazy not having in-person social interactions. Okay, fine, that's your perspective. My only point is the reason I'm following these rules is because these rules just happen to be a good thing for me to follow. That's it. I have no problem breaking a rule if I decide that it's stupid or if I just don't like following it, and if I believe nothing bad is going to happen if I break the rules. I don't follow rules just to be a rule follower. I do it because I want to. Now, my wife, on the other hand, is a type 9-wing-1 ISTJ, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Speaking of which, why do I always forget to put on my wedding ring?